Hi everyone, it's Becky here. So it's another warm sunny day in Montreal and I am around Plateau Mont Royal area again, sitting down at the picnic table in the park. And I just clipped my gooseneck tripod on the edge of the table ready to film a sketch process video for you. I'm going to sketch this pretty inspiring, playful view in front of me. So this is my current sketchbook. It's a Speedball brand handbook watercolor journal, and I've been working on this sketchbook for about a month now. Here are some of the pages. I'm going to do a complete detailed sketchbook tour very soon in the next few weeks. So I draw and paint watercolors from real life observation every day. So this is my passion as an artist, is to draw inspirations from the mundane every day. There are inspirations everywhere around us, and we don't have to go very far away to find sketch subject matters. And now I'm going to show you my very simple set of sketching materials: one fine liner pen or two, and also two travel water brushes and the watercolor palette. So I'm going to begin drawing directly with an ink pen. So I don't use a pencil to start a layout or do a practice sketch. I just draw directly with an ink pen. I already have like a blueprint of what I want to include in my mind, so I don't need to use a pencil. And of course, you need years of practice with a pencil to begin a layout before you're able to draw directly with an ink pen. And now the drawing process is going to be 4 times faster than my real-time drawing speed. As always, I'm beginning with a foreground element. A lot of times in urban landscapes, it's a tree. And a lot of people have been mentioning that they want to learn how to paint watercolors. So my most important tip for you is that if you want to do really good paintings, whether it's in watercolors or acrylics or oils, you have to refine your drawing skills. So if you can't draw well, you're going to have a hard time painting. So the beautiful colors, also the blending skills, and other good painting techniques are always based on an effective drawing before the painting process. Whether it's drawn with pencil or pen, a lot of times I know some artists, they could paint directly without using a pencil or pen on canvas, but they do have a very strong image in their head before they're able to put in those powerful brushstrokes. So we all need to have like a strong drawing skills, how to lay out the sizes and proportions, the structures of the things that we see first before we play around with colors. So after drawing the tree, I just added the contour outline of the building on the left, and then the bush, and there's another bush on the very left in front of the building and the bench with someone sitting on it. After that, I am drawing a squirrel running past by. There's squirrels everywhere in the parks of Montreal. Okay, after that, I'm filling in the details inside the contour outline of this building, and starting to draw the details of the mural on the wall. Before that, they have these windows in square shapes, and drawing the portrait of this man. So now I want to talk about a bit about my mental image that I formed before putting the first ink line on paper. So I do want to include a lot of these interesting buildings, the playground structures, and the apartment building behind on the other side of the street. The first thing that I need to know is the size of the tree on this page. So once I include about 70 or 80% of this tree, not the whole canopy area, I would know that the rest of the things would fit onto this square page because the tree is the largest object that kind of frame this sketch. So when starting like an urban sketch, I think a powerful way to get started is to know the tallest object in this scenery and start drawing that. And then the rest of the things underneath it or behind it is going to be, fitting onto the page very easily in comparison to the height of that tall object. Usually it's a tree or a traffic sign or a street lamp. And now I'm just having fun drawing the kids' playground structure here. The slides, the monkey bars, the climbers. And I know the highest point of the structure is just a little shorter than the building there. And then adding the bushes around it. And another tree slightly leaning onto the building on the right side. I think the process is just going to get slightly easier and easier because once you have one object or two, you will know the height and the size of the other objects in relationship to the beginning two things that you drew. So I know this little tree is just slightly higher than the building on the left, but shorter than the tree on the left. After that, I'm moving on to more bushes behind the playground structure. And another tree here on the right side. And just quickly adding these foliage textures for the bushes. And now I'm ready to move on to the next layer. So behind these things in the playground, what's the next layer? So I have to constantly question myself, what is behind? So it is this apartment building. And the little chimneys on top of the roof. And the vertical division lines and adding these window panels that I see. And the balconies. Just keeping my lines really loose because this area is being covered by the branches and twigs. So it's not like a crystal clear view. Now those little staircase railings of the balcony. Another vertical division line of the units. Some more window frame shapes. And so drawing these windows and doors, balconies on houses or apartment buildings, my tip is to know that most of these windows are aligning on the same vertical and also the horizontal line. So it's just easier to move on to the next set of windows. And we're drawing these small rectangles and square shapes of windows. You don't have to be perfect. I am moving my pen super fast on the surface of the paper, and I'm not trying to make these windows look exactly the same. I know in real life, architects, they design these windows in very much the same size in repetition. But as artists, we don't have to make them look the same. And also imperfections actually is more fun. It makes these windows look more lively with a bit of movement. And just adding another balcony over here. The balconies are actually hollowed prisms with those vertical bars of railings. So as you can see, I'm also using a variety of different line densities or even solid black shapes to color in the windows and also accentuate the frames of the windows just so they look more interesting. I'm also adding those accentuations of dark black ink according to what I see. The shaded areas are usually contains more black values. And now just adding some loose fallen leaves underneath the playground structure. And just adding some final, not so important details before I call this drawing process done. A little more accentuations and details in the back. And that's it for the drawing part. It took me about 25 minutes to draw this, and now I'm ready to paint watercolors. As always, I paint the sky first. I just wet the sky area with clear water so the blue could spread out nice and smooth. This is actually a turquoise blue color that I mix a bit of lime green into the cerulean blue. So according to the geographical locations and the time of the day, the color of the sky could be quite different. There's like a huge difference of color tones in the early morning compared to midday and compared to later in the day. So right now it's later in the afternoon and I sense more green in the sky. So that's why I mixed a bit of lime green into the cerulean blue. Now here comes the nice complementary color, the golden yellow mixed with cadmium yellow and a bit of yellow ochre for the first layer of the playground area, containing a lot of wooden chips and fallen leaves. A bit of viridian green mixed with yellow ochre for these bushes, nice and loose. So now I'm using my Holbein brand water brush and it's very watery. This is great for being bold for the first layer. And then to refine the details, I'm going to switch to another water brush that is less watery. And adding on the first layer, the sunshine being reflected onto the exterior of this apartment building. What's left over yellow, dilute it. And a good way to start a watercolor painting is to start lightly, dilute the paint into lighter tones, and also do the warm colors first. Lots of yellows and light greens in this situation. And most of this wall area, the mural, is of this turquoise color, but more intense compared to the sky, containing less water and more paint pigment. So when painting watercolors, you don't have to use a lot of colors. You don't have to buy a watercolor palette containing 72 colors. To make your painting interesting is to control the intensity or the tone of the same color by mixing more or less water. So you're creating an illusion that it seems like you're using a lot of colors, even though you're only using like a couple colors. And just adding some fresh green for that images on the mural. Some leftover brown diluted for the skin color. And also play around with color gradients, the transition of different tones of the same color or similar colors. As you can see for the background area of this mural, just play around with these blues, greens, and turquoise colors. Playing with adding more or less water to the paint. So beautiful gradients of colors can happen when the previous color is not completely dried. So a lot of times you don't want to wait for too long before adding on the next color or the next layer of colors to create a nice gradients of colors. Adding on 2 layers of yellows very quickly to create a sense of shade for that little corner of the building on the upper left. Grabbing like a darker tone of green, viridian green, and just adding these choppy brushstrokes around the bottom of these bushes. This is a pretty easy way to add 3 dimension to anything. These bushes are spherical, merging together into these clusters. And most of the dark tones are around the bottom of these bushes. Probably because there are actually more leaves and branches around the bottom. and grabbing some yellow ochre to paint these dotting brushstrokes of fallen leaves. So this layer of yellow is more intense, containing less water compared to the first light wash. Yeah, so I think these choppy little brushstrokes are really adding a nice rhythm around the bottom of this sketch, because most of this sketch contains flat areas. It's good to have these dynamic bits of colors here on the bottom. It's really loose and fun. So trying to use a variety of different yellows, yellow oranges, orange browns. And now painting these vibrant colors of the playground structure, starting with the yellow. And a bit of red, leaving a little gaps of transitions to show the shiny metallic bars. Grabbing a little blue to add a bit of shade on the side of this slide. And also inner arc area. A little bit for the red bars as well. Some more around underneath the hood on top. Some blue bars in between. So while I was painting the other areas, the apartment area with the first layer of mellow yellow is very much dried. So now it's a good time to add on a solid layer of raw umber for the rooftop area. And the raw umber is slightly diluted, so the warm yellow underneath is not being completely covered. So the atmosphere of a warm sunny day is still here, even though I added on a dark brown on top for the roof. The transparent quality of watercolors is really helping us to express and add more definitions to the things we paint. And adding some purple blue tones for the bottom of this building, probably the cast shadow from the shorter building on the left. Adding a bit of drama to this scenery with shadows as well. Shadows or shaded areas are also very important in a sketch, so we have to be brave adding that. A little shadow underneath the roofs. Yeah, and keep adding some more small thin brush strokes of shaded areas on the side of each cubicle that pops up, and not overpaint. Adding some more bluish gray tones around the foreground area. Probably shadows from the trees around. If you want to show the warmth of a setting, you have to paint the shadows to give the contrast. A little gray for the lamps, for the frame of this building. And I like to take like a few seconds to see what other gray areas that I need to paint in. Painting the squirrel with leftover brown. And now I'm ready to have fun with the color gradients of yellows, yellow oranges, and browns. So before I begin a painting process, I always have a plan in my head of what I'm about to do in the next few minutes. So my actions are very quick with a plan in my head. So now before the yellow dries, I am grabbing a bit of burnt sienna, wet into wet. And because the sunshine comes from the left side, actually most of the tree contains this midtone of burnt sienna. And the sunshine is hitting the tree in an uneven way because of the organic 3 dimensions of these trees. And same for this tree as well. And darken this tree because the transparent magic of watercolors, the previous layer is still shining through the brown. And now grabbing a little bit of blue to intensify the burnt sienna. This is the darker tone on the tree. So roughly there are like 3 different tones for this tree. The warm yellow, and then the burnt sienna, and then this kind of like almost a raw umber tone. And I think these 3 trees are holding this sketch with a sense of unity. So when doing a landscape or an urban sketch, it's really important to establish a sense of unity by including several of the same subject matter, for example, trees or traffic signs or other objects to add a nice sense of balance, and using the leftover yellow-orange and the very tip of my round brush to paint these golden branches and twigs. And this sketch also contains a nice balance of warm and cold colors. The warm colors are the yellows, oranges, and browns, and the lighter greens. And the colder colors are the blues and darker tones of greens, and the bluish grays. And moving on to the final polish part of my sketch, just adding very little bits of colors here and there. Some darker shade of green for the bottom of this tree, as in shade. And just a bit more contrast for this tree in the foreground with little vertical brushstrokes to follow the rhythm and texture of the bark. The shadow underneath the playground structure, and that's very much it. Here's the look of my finished sketch. So thank you so much for watching this video, everyone. If you like it, please click like and leave me a comment below. Subscribe to my channel for weekly updates. So in December, I'm updating my channel like 4 to 5 times a week. So stay tuned for more exciting sketching tutorial and vlog videos. See you very soon next time. Have a great day, everyone.